I got these little cool things from Amazon this week. Trick topper zip ties. They're chrome. And I knew these existed because the bike I've been working on had them to bind cables. And that's what I'm going to use them for again. So pretty cool little deal here to be able to get chromed zip ties to help bind cables and not have those zip ties be unsightly. Good morning, YouTubers. It is about midweek, and it's morning, and I'm making my morning coffee and getting ready to go down to work. Unfortunately, I used my music footage from a gig I did with the band this last weekend in my last video, so I'm thinking, well, weekend's gonna very quickly come upon me, and I've got to try to get some content in order to include. And what a lot of folks probably don't realize is Friday, Saturday morning is my deadline for content that shows up in a given week because I need time to edit it in. And so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. Here's the irony. Like I told you last week, I've been working on a presentation on time management. Dr. Stephen Covey is a hero of mine. I was introduced to his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sometime in the early 90s, which is about the time I think it was released. It's been a major part of my life ever since. And so taking and presenting content, some of which you saw in the last video, is something that's important to me. That balanced with a lot of the emergencies that have sprung up in my life over the last couple of weeks and other things have culminated and have really put me into reactive mode, and I've been dealing with a lot of fires. So, like I said, it's kind of almost funny that my most hectic couple of weeks in a long time come at the same time that I'm presenting a presentation on time management. I just can't help but find the humor there. So, I'm going to enjoy my cup of coffee, probably grab a little bit of oatmeal. For those of you that are wondering how the Noom thing is going, I'm staying positive. It's going well. Over the last 3 to 4 days, though, the scale really hasn't changed a whole lot. In fact, it's gone up maybe 0.2 of a pound. So I'm trying not to let that get to me. And I'm sure it's just my body going through changes after having gone through this, 3 weeks. The other thing is I'm seated a lot over the last few days and have gotten very little sleep. So last night I did. So I'm hoping that getting back to regular patterns of things will get me back into a normal progression of health. Anyway, I have plenty to be happy about. The snow is melted from the ground as I suspected it would be. And we're back to a place where we can maybe think about riding very soon. I haven't checked with the forecast to see what it's going to be like this weekend. Maybe it'll be super awesome. I do have some commitments on Saturday, but Sunday looks like it's a good candidate for some decent garage time. And, after tonight at 7 o'clock is when my presentation is. Maybe I'll get some time in the garage on Thursday as well. Anyway, more in a bit. And of course, my breakfast of champions. Getting ready to start another day at the old grind. Coffee. Oatmeal, water. I came upstairs for lunchtime, and as you can see, it's pretty nice out. I have a first motorcycle run coming up in May, and my plan was to stay at one of my favorite places. a place that you saw my good friend Kurt and I reenact a scene from Step Brothers acting like goofballs in one of my previous videos. But I'm heartbroken to discover that Deadwood Dick's has closed its doors for good. I don't know what it means. I know they wouldn't rent one of their suites to me because that's closed forever. I hope it doesn't mean the same fate has fallen on the antique store, because that is one of my favorite places too. So back to the drawing board. I'm going to see what else is available in that area. And guaranteed, when I roll into Deadwood, I'll be trying to figure out what the heck happened there. But we still have the itinerary of the Deadwood's custom bike shop. I'll be going in there, and there's a taxidermist in Custer, or at least I hope there is. But I suspect this is all aftermath of COVID, and it's going to be an interesting year to see what all has kind of gotten knocked out of existence. So anyway, I'm sorry to bring sad news, but I thought those of you that are familiar with it would be interested to know. I'm back on track and feeling good today. I had a talk last night about time management, and it seemed to go pretty well. And now I'm making some coffee, and in the morning I'm also preparing my water for the day, which is considerable. And it's going to be a good day. So I enjoy your average Scotch whiskey and Irish whiskeys. Funny story behind these two. I've picked up a couple of these Game of Thrones limited editions, and I have some in my collection. I actually traded some of this Teeling for some venison. A friend of mine hunts, and I was able to get some of those. I think I talked about that in a previous episode. My grandpa took my dad out hunting when he was a kid. They were out hunting rabbit, and my dad accidentally shot the tail off the rabbit, and it started to squeal and cry and things like this, and it forever put my dad off of hunting. I can't blame him, but so I never really had the opportunity to go do that. It's a tough thing, really. You know, I have chickens, but I've never slaughtered any of them myself. That said, it doesn't stop me from sending them in when they're full-sized and have someone do that for me. You know, I like chicken. There's tons of people that do. For a long time, I was a vegetarian, mainly for health purposes. When I was in, and when I say that, what I really mean, if you want to know the truth, is I did it for a girl. But there were long-term health benefits. I lost a ton of weight. And so when I first met my wife, a year later, I stayed doing that for another year and a half or so. I don't know if I could do it anymore. You know, when I was a kid, one of the big things was like cheeseburgers, and I was able to give that up. And actually, after not eating meat for a year or two, cheeseburgers and pizza, like with beef on it, really didn't taste all that good. But I've grown to acquire a wonderful taste for prime rib, and I don't know if I could give it up now. Maybe, if I had to. And I love all kinds of fish chowders, and I like chicken dishes. So the point is, if I'm comfortable having somebody else process it, I ought to be able to be comfortable with knowing where it comes from. And if I'm not, I should go back, I guess. to being vegetarian, or at least that's where my mind is. And I've reflected on that a little bit. It's really sort of a survival thing. But along with these 2 whiskeys came a very important lesson on customer service. So probably about Monday, I was looking to get more steps in, went down to the mall, and I guess things are still closing down at 7 o'clock because of COVID in Rochester. Because the mall looked pretty dark. So I thought, well, where else am I going to go? And I haven't been to our local Best Buy for a long time, so I thought I'd go up there, and it was closed. So where do I go to get my steps? Well, the natural place is there's a liquor store right next to the Best Buy. And there's a type of vodka that comes in a skull. And I think it's called Crystal Head, if I'm not mistaken. Dan Aykroyd has a stake in the company. Anyway, around Christmas time, they came out with some special editions that are in different cases. One of them I think is called Onyx, and the other one might be called Opal. I don't recall at the moment. So I went in because at Christmas time I put my name on a list to order some of these, and I never got a call. So when I inquired the nice young man behind the counter, he called over his manager, and when his manager heard what I was after, he rolled his eyes and said, "Not here." And I thought, wow, I wasn't asking for a whole lot. I just wanted to have an update on what it is that I had asked for. But I don't know. I guess people. I'm certain that shipments are probably still hampered because of everything that's been going on, and maybe he was having a bad day. Maybe he was just tired of being asked about special orders. Whatever the case, the young man that I started talking with told me I should go up to the Twin Cities if I wanted to find it. The experience really got me thinking about customer service and its importance. I was having kind of a bad day anyway, and was hoping maybe that if I could find these bottles, it would brighten up my day. But instead, was kind of met with some grumpy people, and that's just not how I operate. And if you didn't know what I was talking about before, there it is. And indeed, it's called Crystal Head. To be or not to be. The other ones are kind of if you know what oil looks like in water, kind of that rainbow. Apparently, the other case looks like that, and then the other one is purely black. So I thought that would be pretty cool. I'm out for a walk. It's been a crazy last few weeks. A lot of emergencies. I love living in the country. This may be the first time in recent memory that I've actually taken the time to go out and enjoy my surroundings. It's easy to take things for granted. You get super caught up in the rat race, day-to-day churn, wound up about things that aren't super important. I love riding on my motorcycle, but ever since I was a little boy, I loved being in nature. And the motorcycle thing, the love really began because I experienced a sense of freedom that I haven't experienced since I was a young kid, exploring the backwoods at my parents' house, or going on hikes at the nature center with my grandma. friends. And it's just a really good reminder to put things in perspective. And so I've got one of my trips set up now. I've got another one later that sounds like we are going to be camping, which I'm super excited about. And I'm going to try, now that I'm out of the, pardon the pun, out of the woods with all my emergencies, that I don't get myself back in them and have time to hike around and enjoy my surroundings. These neighbors run a business called Garden Market Plots, and I'll quit walking so I don't make you sick. Nicest people in the world. We trade eggs with them for straw, and we get pretty much all of our different plants that we can from them. Strawberry plants and tomatoes. Just the nicest people in the world. My mind is sort of a strange thing. I'm not telling many of you anything new, but I remember my grandfather was a treasurer of a pen and pencil company, amongst other things. And I remember sitting outside of his office, and there was the shadow box of a pencil in the various stages as it goes through assembly. And I remember thinking to myself, even then, I was probably like 8 years old, I wonder what would happen if something major happened. Would we have the intelligence, if for some reason like electricity stopped, for us to manufacture and create pencils? Imagine humanity if we couldn't have pencils. You know, since then I've realized there's plenty of ways to fashion writing tools, and you know, shows like The Walking Dead are all the rage, have been. I guess maybe not so much now. And there's surplus of this stuff, so there's probably enough to keep us going for a while. But even with computers and everything going digital, and I know I'm going to sound really old now, but imagine all that would be lost. And I can plant a garden, and as you know, I jar, and the crops could feed the family for a while, but it just doesn't go nearly as far as livestock. And eggs, if you have a chicken and you've got a rooster, hen and roosters, you can pretty much have a pretty excellent supply of food and eggs itself, assuming you can feed them. There's all kinds of things that you can feed chickens. And so, one thing I will say is potatoes are an interesting one, because my daughter and I had some potatoes that sprouted, and I cut off the sprouts and got some of those Rubbermaid tubs, put a little bit of dirt and planted the sprouts, and we added soil throughout the summer just as an experiment. These were potatoes from the store. And at the end of the summer, with very little work, a little sunlight, Rubbermaid container and dirt, we had a couple of bags of potatoes. And it really got me wondering, it seems like we have so much here that we could use to solve the world's problems. How much of it is just knowledge? That knowledge didn't take a major university, didn't really even take a high school class. It was just the knowledge of, well, I guess high school maybe. I knew what a sprout was. But we've become so used to things being produced for us and becoming consumers. One of the things you're going to see me doing a lot more of as well is I bought a metal detector a few years ago, and when I was a kid, I wanted to be an archaeologist, and this is my little way of looking for relics and things that came from the past, because those things tell a story, and that fascinates me. I recently went to one of my local coin stores, and there was what's called a potty coin, which is hobo art. They took things like old Morgan silver dollars and etched into them and modified them to create skulls, or in this case, they took a seated Liberty and took the seat and changed it into a chamber pot. That kind of stuff and the stories it tells is fascinating. That's why I liked picking up that cigar guitar. That's some folk art and tells a story about this area and musicians. I love things that tell stories. Sometimes I get criticized for being a storyteller. And that's okay. Not everybody's the same. But to me, that's a uniquely human thing. We won't always be here. There will be a time, for whatever reason, maybe we've moved on to the stars. I hope that's where we get, especially in times like now, where people can't seem to cooperate. And certainly current events haven't helped that. And don't misunderstand me. That's not anything political. That is hope that you're hearing, that humanity will eventually get back to a place where they understand the biggest problems that exist come from our own hearts. And we have to work on ourselves and our hearts in order to make things better. No matter what we do, we can't change another person's heart by telling them. We have to change another person's heart by showing them the way. The greatest solutions to our problems requires us all to cooperate. Surely we can find common ground. And you know what? Maybe we already have, if we just learn to listen. Anyway, I don't know when society became so disposable. You know, we build things for single purpose. I gotta tell you, based on the stigma of society, I kind of, and the gray hairs in my beard, I kind of feel like an antique saying some of these things. But if we care so much about the planet, I do, about all the things I just showed you, I don't understand why we don't address those things. If we care about people and their ability to eat, why don't we help them with understanding how to utilize resources? And I get it. The one thing that I will say is there's not enough coverage of people helping their neighbor. And I've personally witnessed it in the derecho in Iowa. I saw neighbors helping neighbors, and It's a biological fact that when you witness something like that, it's contagious. Every bit as contagious as all the anger. And I don't get terribly religious publicly, but whatever your faith, there's likely a religious figure that talked about the importance of spreading love, spreading hope. This is where we've gone wrong. I don't understand when the tides changed and we highlighted so much negativity and forgot about all the greatness. Forgot about it takes all kinds to make this world a wonderful place of learning. That's why I like the stories. Because some of it is the answer to what it is I was asking as a young boy with regard to how will we survive. How many of you realize that in 2020 we went through a period of time that will probably be captured and witnessed in much the same way as the Great Depression? Now, I didn't go through the Great Depression, but I did some pretty drastic things this last year, not knowing if I would have a job. Everybody was asking that question, and I'm lucky. I work for a pretty wonderful place. People had to work together to make sure that they had something as simple as toilet paper. It would be a shame if we spent all of our time talking about purely the challenges and lost sight of some of the other wonderful stories that like the ones that we saw depicted for the Great Depression. Beautiful things. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's tremendous sadness and tremendous depictions of humanity and kindness in works like The Grapes of Wrath. It's been a lot of years since I've read that, but maybe it's time to go back. Everything I'm saying out of a love of everything that's around me and respect. And the truth is, I don't have to agree with you, and you don't have to agree with me for us to respect each other. You're my brothers and sisters. And we're in this crazy thing called life together for a reason. And more, science is beginning to show us that there's a bigger purpose. And this isn't the end. And I mean it when I tell you I love you.